Hello, Liz. I'm supposed to call you. Your paper's about art. I guess just from seeing behind me, you'll know I'm particularly interested. Cool. Okay. Arts in 2020. My field of interest is the visual arts, an ever-changing and overlooked field. Sorry, cat. It's certainly a difficult career to navigate, especially as humans evolve and the purpose of art evolves with us. Whoa. Okay. My first question was asking how is art valued in modern society? Everything you look at that you or someone else finds aesthetically pleasing was made by an artist. Minuscule details within video games or special effects or in movies were made by artists. When you decide to pursue visual art, the average person will remember only a small portion of the jobs available to artists. Yeah, sure. Such as education, or assume that your goal is to create grand pieces of artwork. It seems like two really separate ideas to me. When you decide to pursue it, people will only remember a small portion of the jobs. Yeah, I feel like it's a separate thought. There are jobs in education. There are jobs in, animation for commercials or whatever. Because then you got, or assume your goal is to create grand pieces of artwork. That's such an important point. I'd like to see it have, its own sentence. Okay, there are communities to nourish that, and those are still very valid careers, but not every artist is a painter or a teacher. Okay, sorry, just a good comments. The purpose of art in modern society is to serve a practical purpose like advertising, but there's also an outlet for creativity. People can use art to express their feelings, and that is not a freedom that was easily accessible at the peak of art history, the European Renaissance. Well, not in art, at least, right? For sure. The article I chose was... Okay, hold on. So this first one is about how is art valued? And what you discussed was jobs, but you didn't talk about value. And then you talked about freedom. Okay, now you're getting into value. Okay, the article I chose was What Makes Art Valuable Then and Now from Khan Academy. It put into perspective how the purpose of art has evolved since the Renaissance. Before, artists worked based on commission, and their art was usually meant to serve to perpetuate the commissioner's wealth by covering it in gold or to serve a religious purpose like Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel. Excuse me, just when I read The Commissioner, I suddenly thought of Batman. Okay, I know it as a commissioner. Even then, most of the masters of the past only gain recognition after their passing. Yep. Not Michelangelo, though. Now, artists have more creative freedom and aren't chained to one specific medium their entire life, and it is also easier for artists to gain recognition through the internet. Well, I mean, artists are not chained to one specific medium their entire life. I guess that's true to the extent that, people today have much more leisure time, so even if they aren't professional artists, they could make some of their art. But I feel like, I have known people who are artists for Hallmark, drawing, creating cards and stuff, and they might have really felt like they were chained to one specific medium, but I don't know, just a thought. While the artist's creativity can now thrive, the general population doesn't see art as something incredibly valuable and is viewed more as a neat skill some people have. Even artists do not realize how broad and how sought out they are in certain industries. So what I would love you to add in here is you keep referencing that, people think artists are flaky and lame and they don't have jobs and, all that kind of stuff. Stereotypical. But it would be great if you actually referenced a study, a survey or something that talked about how people feel about art. Because at this point, it's just kind of like I feel like it would be better supported and it would help you kind of focus your thoughts too. Okay, my second question was asking how can artists succeed in the digital world? Now, people do not buy paintings as much as they used to, so artists have adapted and began creating their own businesses online. They can sell a variety of things, either artworks, print, jewelry, decor, etc. The article I read, How to Succeed as an Artist Online, is an example of how an individual navigated the online space. He covers several points, the first being that it's important to establish a community by posting your art in a public space. Many artists have done this by creating public videos, or posting actively on social media where it's easy to stumble upon. He also mentioned that it is important to understand that your art needs to be at a certain standard in order to appeal to people enough to want to spend their money on it. Yes, I don't know if you're going to talk about how much art people get for free at this point in history, because they get a ton. One of the most important parts of the pushes through is that you will never be ready to put yourself out there. Ooh, ouch. Artists always have that insecurity in the back of their mind because your art will never feel like it is good enough. True. Even professionals are constantly improving by analyzing the faults in their work, even if others do not see those faults. True. You tend to scrutinize your own work greatly, even if it's something you are incredibly happy with. There's also an aspect of luck that determines if and when your career takes off, which goes for any sort of entrepreneurship. That's true. Good point. It is a risky move because most artists I follow quit their previous job to pursue art full time, or many artists do work multiple jobs for financial stability, and until they can transition into a full time artist. Okay, I loved all this paragraph. I'm just wondering though, was all of that? It looks like all of that was your analysis, your words, which is great, which is fine. But I guess I'm just saying, like, if there were any parts of that were from the article, then go ahead and mention that they're from the article. I don't. It makes total sense that that's just all your ideas. So, okay, the next question I asked is very similar to the former. Can artists succeed in the digital world? Before I asked how, but this question is now focused on society's standard of success. Okay, so let me go back a little bit. So this question was, how can they succeed? Okay, and now we're into, can they succeed? This question is now focused on society's standard of success. Ooh, there's a starving artist stereotype that pins the career as impossible to navigate and that it will typically end with a person living in poverty like Edgar Allan Poe. I always think of him. He was really poor. The avenues and demands for artists aren't as widely spread because there is the notion of success that pushes individuals to choose typically stable industry jobs to ensure a paycheck at the expense of their own passions. Office work is valid and people do enjoy that sort of lifestyle. God, do they? I don't know. I had a good office job once. Okay, but the general population should educate themselves more and more and not discourage people from pursuing atypical careers. Why? Why should they do that? I mean, I'm 100% behind you. I also feel like you just need the word capitalism in there someplace. I feel like you're just not saying that word, but when you're talking about how they want a steady job and they won't be passionate about their work, that sounds like related to capitalism. Okay, the next question I have about my field of interest is, what influence does art have in society? Art has become a tool for social change. As I read in this publisher, how does art influence society? Emotions can be displayed through visual stimuli and create empathy within the viewer, effectively enforcing an opinion. Enforcing an opinion. People also tend to respect art that is visually appealing, so even if they do not agree with the opinion, they can acknowledge the opinion without enraging negative feelings some of the time. Yeah, some of the time. Art can also release positive emotions within oneself. You're opening a lot of doors in this paper that I'm hoping might inspire you as you write your other papers. Because here you're like opening this door about how art influences society. You're talking a little bit about how people like something's visually appealing, a little bit about how art can influence people. But I feel like through the whole paper, you haven't really referenced much the idea that art is entertainment. Like a lot of art is entertainment both in the sense that like people will go to a gallery opening and hang out and like see what there's to see, but also certainly, of course, all the artists who are making commercials and they're making TV shows and they're trying to make something that people will just find entertaining. Okay, the purpose of art has evolved since its popularization. What was the original purpose? Dude. Okay, this is me thinking through. Now I want to write about this. Many of the points I made in the first paragraph correlates with this question as well. In the past, it was meant to commemorate, my bad, you did tell us that, commemorate the commissioner's wealth, or to serve a religious purpose. Yeah, you said that. Okay, well, art serves a great purpose, especially in fields like marketing, video games, and animation. People do not typically value it as great as they did in the past. See, I don't know. I mean, did they? Like, in Renaissance times, just as this one random example we're looking at, I mean, there are a lot of people employed in the video game industry, for example, and in the design of websites and fonts. And anyway, that's tough. Let's see. Overall, the visual arts field is greatly underrated, and society as a whole is uneducated about artists as a whole. Woo! I hate people too, though. As the world has evolved. As the world has evolved. As the world evolved, art has evolved with it. But as time goes on, we neglect the importance of the creative fields for society's well-being. Okay, I 1000% agree. But where's your works cited? Ah. Okay. So the last thing I will say, as I make sure that this isn't too long. Okay, good, it's not. The last thing I'll say is that I think before you write your other paper, you really, really should make an outline. Because, I mean, this is just my experienced opinion. I feel like from reading the paper, like, your mind will go through all kinds of great ideas and kind of go off here and then kind of go off there. Which, you know, most people have this issue. But you had all kinds of good stuff there. Some of it, though, was a little bit tangled up. That's how I would describe it. So, yeah, again, I would just really encourage you to outline before you get started. Or, I mean, some people do it afterwards, too. But I feel like more often it's valuable, before, to just be like, first paragraph's about this, then this, then this, then this. Because you've already used a pretty, standard structure, which is totally fine. Like, here's my question, here's my question, here's my question. But the stuff in between, I think, should be a little bit more organized. Well, thank you for your paper. This is kind of stuff I get ridiculously excited about, so it was fun for me to read a paper about art and society.